So, ladies and gentlemen, hello again. Welcome from Krakow Film Festival. Now it's time for one of our biggest attractions this year, the Masterclass of Godfrey Reggio, the award winner, the winner of Dragon of Dragons. So, Godfrey, hello. Thank you so much for being here with us.
You
Congratulations
just
for
cut
the
him
award.
off. Wait a minute.
Congratulations.
I'm
Sure.
cut off somehow. Let's not do this more. I can't hear you.
Is it better now? Can you hear me right
Okay,
now?
it's better now. Thank you. So look, I want
Perfect.
to
So once
just
again,
go ahead.
yeah, please go on. The floor is yours.
Go for it now. I don't know what's happening.
Start.
You can start. I just said that we are
Okay,
ready
so
for you to start your speech, so please go on.
okay, so I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to receive this award. In my talk, I means we. So I receive it for a group of collaborators, Philip Glass, John Kane, a whole bunch of people. And I sent out a lot of questions that will give you my point of view about questions, because questions are what it's all about. So they're like, I see art as an affliction. It's a liminal moment. We're on the threshold. And this is a way in to find a way out. So I'll go back to these questions whenever. But I would like to begin the class now. And let me just say this. If anybody wants to interrupt me, feel free to do so. And I'll begin with the following. Am I an AI or am I real? Now, I want to just point out something. AI has been around for over 55 years, and only recently a little kid can buy an AI gizmo now. In other words, the world we live in, we not only the blind may not see, we don't see the world we live in because it's created in the image and likeness of AI. So that's important to remember, I think. Elias Canetti, the Hungarian Nobel laureate, said all of a sudden, without realizing it, humankind exited reality. That's a big statement. Let me give an example. About 500 years ago, off the coast of Florida, in what's now the United States, the conquistadors, I think they were 3 ships. We know all about this through diaries that some of the people kept. They were going to make their first contact with the aliens that they thought were in India. They were Native Americans. They got their best metal on. They had horses. They got all pumped up. There were maybe 30 of them that went through the village. And to the great amazement of those that went through the village, nobody noticed them. They were like invisible. They were present but ghosts. Now, this has happened in the Polynesian islands. It's happened all over the world when first sightings meet. We were the aliens that came there. So we are like those Indians of 500 years ago, those natives of 500 years ago. Our language has lost our ability to see what's present. We see the world not through our eyes, but through language. Wittgenstein tells us this: the limit of my language is the limit of my world. That's worth saying again. The limit of my language is the limit of my world. So in 1900, there were arguably 30,000 plus languages on the planet, dialects. Today, you would think with more people, there were 1.2 billion, now we're 8 billion or whatever it happens to be, there'd be more languages. Now we approach 3,000 languages and principal dialects. The more people we have, the less language we have. So we have transited from metaphor to a megaphor. We are all sensate beings. We all happen to have eyes, ears, nose, mouth, all kinds of good things on our body. We become what we see, touch, taste, feel. Everything comes through the senses. Our senses are controlled by the environment we live in. So as sensate beings, we become the environment we live in. The environment today is technological environment, and I'll get to that a little later. We also become the routine of actions. It's called ordinary daily living. Marx asked the question, is it the content of your mind that determines your behavior, or is it your behavior that determines the content of your mind? And for 9 out of 8 of us, it's our behavior that determines the content of our mind. Joseph Brodsky, the poet laureate in the Gulag, realized this. He said, you have to estrange yourself from the world. The Dalai Lama knew the value of routine. I was in Albuquerque in '92 and big meeting with, I don't know, thousands of young people, all kinds of people. He gave a talk, and after the talk, he'd take a few questions, and a young woman jumped up and said, Your Holiness, what is the single most important thing that I can do? He said, routine, next question. So, the power of routine is enormous in our life. Have a hose that puts water on the smoke, not the fire. The world's on fire. We don't know how to put it out. This is an extraordinary and extreme time. As you look, as I look, maybe you, not I, look in the peak of health, you can have something called sudden collapse. So we're living in a world today more real than true. So I propose that we have an autopsy in order to see the world. Not an autopsy, an artopsy. An autopsy is to see with one's own eyes. Art gives you the canvas, the subconscious, to see the world we live in. Now, the world we live in is the world of nature and the world of technology. I prepared a little thing that I want to read, but I want to say this. It's called the new terra firma. The grand design, if nature changes, we being part of nature, we change. We're not separated from nature. So I'm going to give you a comparison, old nature and new nature. Old nature is breathing, new nature is breathless. Old nature has an horizon, new nature horizonless. Old nature anima mundi, new nature techno mundi. Old nature diversity, new nature homogenization, organic, then synthetic, real, virtual, word, image, language, number, immediate, mediated, mystery, certainty, embodiment, disembodiment, local, global, on planet, off planet, the natural environment, the technological world. So this is the world we live in. We live in 2 worlds at once. But the world of nature, we're so separated from, we no longer know what it is. It's the world of technology. I'm not talking about technology as a gizmo. I'm talking about it with a big, big T. Try to get that. We're taught in schools that technology is neutral. It's the use or misuse you make of them. They scream that all the time about AI. Well, it's not neutral. All technology has politics that's built into it because we're not affected by technology. It exists in technology. It's not affected by, everything exists within. You and me, the world, made to the likeness of their, not to the image and likeness of God. Okay? So technology is the new divine. And because I'm a Catholic, maybe some of you are, or Jewish, I'm a Jewish Catholic. That's another story. It's a sacrament. What's the difference between sacrament and sign? A sign just tells you. A sacrament, if you know what it is the highest form of magic. It's if you put a ring on your married finger in a sacrament, it produces what it signifies. So you might want to have 3 rings on or get rid of it right away, because that is the deal. The sacrament produces. Its truth becomes the truth, remaking the world. The sacrament today is technology. It is remaking the world, remaking us to its own image and likeness. There's a new pantheon, the primacy of number, globalization. So we become it, as I said. Humans as aliens. Let's talk about that. In the Middle Ages, there were angels appearing everywhere. Now there are UFOs appearing everywhere. You might think they're not connected, but I think they're connected. I live as the crow flies from Los Alamos and the 37th parallel. Check that out. And that is the principal UFO base. Now, I could explain that, but you check it out. You don't have to believe. First of all, what I'm telling you today tells you more about me than the subject, because I'm subjective like all of us. So if anyone speaks, you know that they're telling you more about yourself than the subject. So I don't know if you know the book of Enoch. Enoch was the father of Noah, the grandfather of Methuselah. His book was so clear because his book was not about now, it was about a future to come, which I believe is now. So he never made it into the Bible, okay? But for those that you may be Jewish, let me tell you what our people say, as opposed to the New Testament. Very important. The Old Testament is completely composed of commentaries by Rabbi this, Rabboni, the prophet. Everyone has a point of view, everyone. And that's what it's all about, conversation. They don't speak for God, they let God speak for himself. And God's name in the Bible is dog, D-O-G. So in the New Testament, the New Testament comes after the Heraclitus and Homer, the pre-Socratic philosophers. The New Testament is based on the Word. What the Word says is absolutely true. So you either believe it or don't. Do you see the difference between the two testaments? Am I making myself clear? I hope so. So, yes, we're seeing angels as they saw. We're seeing UFOs as they saw angels. We're addicted. We're in an altered state. We don't, anybody in an altered state, the first thing is denial. We shouldn't deny the state we're in. So how may art speak? After all this I said, can you speak? Octavio Paz, if you don't know him, write him down. He's a Nobel laureate for literature. He's from Mexico City. He said, all meaning is in the form. It's subjective. All meaning is in the form. If you get the form, there's so much more in the form than you think you put into it. Without the form, you're out there hoping that you might find something. So the form is like the darkness. Out of darkness, form in. Now, I'll tell you something maybe you'll believe or not. I certainly do. The highest form of prayer is not give me this or take away my cancer or bless me from fucking Hitler. It might be. It's the act of creation. In that sense, we are most creator. So that is the highest form of prayer, and cinema can be your highest form of prayer. Art has no intrinsic meanings. Art is not didactic. If you were with your beloved, he or she at a sunset, you wouldn't say, gee, what does the sunset mean tonight? Art means nothing, but it is meaningful. It's a wholly different arrangement. So the sunset can be very meaningful, but have no meaning, of course, because it's all in the eye of the beholder. So our tableau is the not the unconscious, not the conscious mind, but the subconscious mind, the mind that works off the right hemisphere. Our reptilian brain separates that. Like the stars of the past are in our present, the stars of the past are in the background. The stars of the past speak to us. What am I trying to say? Let me try to figure it out. That that is the tableau of the subconscious. Be careful of the conscious. That's the left brain. The conscious of rationality, of clarity. Beware of that in art. You don't want to explain the explanation. We know, or you may know, music doesn't proceed to the soul through metaphor. It has a direct communion to the soul of the listener. Music is by nature autodidactic. Put a frame around something, everyone sees a different picture. Hear music, and you will be surprised what your ear may see. It's most important. It's not playing second fiddle to the visual. The image is constructed of the hours to the. There's the art of imitation and the art of creation, which is the highest form of prayer. So I've always taken the position, the position is, the motto, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather be sorry than safe. Don't be safe in art. Jump off the cliff. The Zen, leap and the net will show you how. From Poland, it says, begin and the work shall show you how. You have to trust that if you're trying to be safe, don't make art. For those of you that are filmmakers, or the image now, it's called image making, I would be careful. How would I put it? Most films made are never seen. Most films begun are never finished. Most films finished, if they're seen, are seen but for a moment in time. That's for most films. So one has to be committed with, not with grace and gratuity, but like to an asylum, to understand what it means to be an image and an oral maker today. So if you're looking for success, the bitch goddess of money, this is not the place to be. Not the place to be. Nietzsche has two quotes that I offer to you. First and most important, act as if you know what you're doing. In other words, be a con man. Comfort the person you're talking to. Nietzsche also says we have art that we may not perish by the truth. We're here to question the truth because its truth, AI 0101 on steroids, has become the truth. So we must question that. So let me go further now. The form of film that I do with my colleagues is an experiential form. I like that nobody knows how to categorize it. It's categorized as a foreign film, as an art film, as a music film, as an unknown. They don't know how to characterize the film. That's, for me, a feather in my cap, okay? Because I've tried my films as outsane as possible. That's what a dragon does. I was born in the year 1940. I'm a metal dragon, as it turns out. So I feel fortunate to have this award for me and my colleagues. So I came up, and it was clear to me the figure and the ground. The figure and the ground. I took the background and made it the foreground. I took the foreground and made it the background. The background I took are buildings, traffic, pedestrians. I shot them as the Mona Lisa, or, Marilyn Monroe, or whoever it is, T-Jazz, or whatever the singers are, so that they had a life of their own. Because there are two geniuses that I work with. One is called the genius loci. Every location has a memory that never, ever disappears. It's called the genius loci. The other genius is childhood recover, says Baudelaire. So the more childlike you are, the more you read the mind of a child, which is not a rational mind, but a mind of the reptilian kind. That is you being the genius. So I hope all of you old people, if you're 20, you're old already, dear, maybe 15, a kid today will have seen and heard in one day more stuff on the net than a kid in the Middle Ages had in their entire. The average attention span for you and those that use the gizmo, and that's 9 out of 8 of us. I count people that I don't use it. I'm an addicted person. I'd never get out of it. Is everywhere from 2.5 seconds to 8.5 seconds. That's our attention span. Look at that gizmo going on. So get rid of the gizmos, burn them at the stake, put them in a concentration camp, turn it around. This is what we have to do. So I try with my colleague to transubstantiate, to change the subject of the substance of the subject into feelings. So the films are not about text, they're about texture. Texture is what you may feel, touch, smell, taste. This is what these films are about. And music, as I said, is the narration, and music is what your ear may see. So let's see, where am I? Maybe I'll close out with the films that I'm involved with are not a dialogue to be told, they're a dialogue to behold. And this is what cinema can be. Today, there's so many special effects in a movie with AI, 99% of them, that you're exhausted. There's no story. It's an effect that is affecting all of us. And those are the most popular movies on the planet right now. So with that, how much time have we spent?
29.
29 minutes. So maybe we could go through these trigger lines. Oh, but let me tell you first, most important for me. When I first did Koyaanisqatsi, I didn't know anything about music other than the Dies Irae as they taught me as a young monk at 14. I can talk about the power of that too. So, why did I bring that up? I forgot. Let's see. Oh, yes. So I was looking around, never heard of Philip Glass, and I heard Penderecki. And it blew my mind. It made me weep because of the horror that has occurred in your country. The horror that happened to the Jews, to the non-Jews, to anyone that was in the way. I'm sure you knew that Hitler built these enormous fortifications, one in more towards the Russian border, wherever that is, in your forest. Because he couldn't beat Stalin, had an army 10 times his size, but it really was a tunnel in case they had to escape that would shoot them out into the ocean, and that's in your country. So I just mentioned that. Penderecki, when I hear his music, it's completely didactic. It makes me fall on my knees. It makes me weep. Penderecki's okay, but Penderecki, Ode to the Victims of Hiroshima. I mean, it goes on and on. And then another composer that I like very much on the complete opposite scale, I like opposites, is Stockhausen. Penderecki is coming from the earth, feeling the pain of what I can't even describe, words can't describe what happened in Poland. Okay. The other guy comes from the sky down. He breaks all the rules. Stockhausen is a madman. So I loved one coming up, one coming down. But after hearing Philip Glass did what I was wanting to do. He made the foreground and the background interchangeable. His work is not didactic, it's autodidactic. You can feel whatever you wish to feel. So as much as I love the others and still do and listen to, and I don't listen to Stockhausen too much, it drives me crazy, but I like his one coming down the earth through all of the satellites and the playing of all of the anthems, etc. But Penderecki I listen to all the time. So I wanted you to know that. And I believe for subjects like this, less is more. I could tell you a lot more if you want to hear, but I think I've said enough. I'd like to go through those questions again. There's everything I talked about is in the questions I prepared. Maybe you've seen the latest film I've been involved with, Once Within a Time, not Upon a Time. Once Within a Time is what's called a reboot. It's a kiddie katsi, a kiddie katsi. The katsis began with Koyanis katsi, Pova katsi, the price we paid to do all of the madness that's happening in the world. California, our most ecological state in North America, does more pollution than all of Africa put together, okay? And then there was Nakoi Katsi, done 23 years ago now, which used primarily stock and archival footage of our iconics, and it describes the world we're living in right this moment, okay? The profundity of cliche, the images we see. Cliches are have profundity because they're cliches. That's how everybody knows, okay? Always acting like a jackass. Those cliches, we could go on and on and on, but that's who we are. So I also learned in making films, you have to address them to a subject. So I address them to our aesthetic triplets. What are those? They're vestigial for most of us. In this order, though: sensation, emotion, and perception. Sensation is what hits us. Wow. Emotion is what we feel. Perception is the fruit of what we get. So we address these to our aesthetic triplets. There's a great story in animal mythology which gives you the reason for this. When the lion's cubs are born, they're born stillborn. Yes, stillborn. And the lion roars them back into life. We are here to roar our audience back into life because we're stillborn. It's a real story. So art is a roar. We want to do what they do. I also want to point out to you that all endings lie in beginnings. That's why I like to put bookends on the films I do, because what you begin with is really implicated in the ending of the films. The price we pay for the pursuit of this technological happiness is the lost world on exit velocity. We are on, if this sounds extreme, I want it to be extreme because I can't be extreme enough for what's going on right now all over the planet. I have dear friends in the Ukraine who are being bombed. I have friends in Russia. One of my executive producers, Alexander Rodanovsky, who was the greatest producer for 30-some years in Russia. Now the government speaks for him. I used to speak to him on the Zoom like now. He's now like God knows where, I hope well. So it's a very intense moment. Also for those that watch the heavens, whether you believe this or not, it's unimportant, but a group of the most important scientists on the world said the sun is going nuts right now. And in several years, everything that we call electronic, which is the world we live in, shall perhaps collapse. It'll make any tragedy we witness now look like a kindergarten play. It's already happened once, but we dodged the bullet. And the scientists say they don't know how to dodge the bullet that's coming very, very shortly. So look at the sun. Don't look at the sun. We are sun blind because of our gizmos, but the sun itself is going crazy right now. And there's all kind of photography to suggest that. It's affecting everything. So we do a reboost again, not by word, reboost says, but by deed, by object, by act, do we rename the world in which we live. And we do so through our first lingua franca, body language, facial expression, eye behavior, gesture. These are our first languages. When I see someone, I can tell in a nanosecond where they're at by how their face looks, their gesture, what they think. It's all written in your face. If someone says, "Oh, pleased to meet you," you know they want to kill you. Listen to Bob Dylan. He talks about all of this, how nice they are, but I know who you run with. You hate me, but tell me, "Oh, you look so kind and pretty today. Bye-bye." So let's see. I'm rambling here. My teacher and I'm proud to say, my big brother, Ivan Illich, from Macedonia, his mother, a Sephardic Jew, his father of the Macedonian nobility. Think of the problem he had. He was thrown out of the Catholic Church like I was. So he says, you have the right to useful unemployment. Try to smoke that today. We have to be paid for everything. We also use what's called, in making of these films, something called sympathetic magic. It's a real term, look it up. It means clarity through distortion, making things outsane rather than sane, shown as completely crazy, trying to turn the world on its head. This is what art maybe could be. Okay. I want to also point out that St. John says he's not a canonical, he lived in the time of Jesus. Matthew, Mark, and Luke were canonical. They never knew Jesus. They lived a couple of hundred years later. And John says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. Flesh, its etymology is shared with the word screen, which is the flesh of the body. So the screen in front of you, the screen I'm on, is the screen. The Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us. So we make films to agitate, to bring the Word in front of us. Take the woman Mary Magdalene, the most, according to the church, other than a few years ago, the most despicable whore on the planet. Well, we know that Mary Magdalene was the only one with Jesus at the cross. She arranged his burial, and it's probably Mary Magdalene, or so everyone says, that took Jesus and his message to Barcelona, where the Jews were welcomed. Jesus was dead then. It could be that Jesus took his cue from Mary Magdalene. Now, my grandmother's name is Mary Magdalene, and my mother's name is Mary Magdalene. And the Jews could only visit us at 3 in the afternoon when no white people were there. So we may have a lot of connections here. Wilson says, we learn to walk by walking and falling down. What I'm trying to say is how failure can become your success. Failures are your biggest teachers. So again, rather be sorry than safe. So look, I didn't give you an hour, I've given you a half hour. I could keep going on, but maybe we should invite the people in. What do you think?
Sure thing, we can do that.
I feel like it's timeless. What's that?
I'm receiving some questions, so actually I'm gonna ask you the first one. The first question I receive is, what do you think we can expect in the near future? Will people stop being corporeal beings, or will there be some forms of AI integration with the human body?
Well, look at the laws of evolution. We've gone from animal to human animal to now cyborg. We are all in a state of cybernetic. Without cyborg, you and I would die probably in a week. So to go back to your question, the future is the present. The prophets in the Old Testament were not talking about 30 years from now. They were talking about now. That's why they were reviled. So the future is the present. Dylan says it's blowing in the wind. If you want to know what's happening, you have eyes, you have ears. Let your ears show you, let your eyes hear the music. It's happening all over, and it doesn't look too good. I would tell them, look out for Enoch. He's coming back. He said he's coming at a time in the future that you'll know when it's right. And I believe it's right for Enoch now. So that's what's happening. You can say that we're lucky. Chinese say we're living interesting times. That's good luck. And you are. You get to see an end that hopefully is a beginning. As I said, all endings, all beginnings, all endings lie in beginnings. Who know what will come next? What we know is so little, so tiny, not even a nano weight to what we don't know in this unknown universe. So anyone that knows what's going to happen, that's the person I don't listen to.
Thank you so much. Another question that I received is, can you share a bit about the evolution of your thoughts on cinema and the usage of the camera? How has your perspective changed over time?
Well, rather than changed, it's intensified and grew. I knew from a young age, first of all, I was a monk, and I took vows to teach the poor gratuitously. I took final vows at 25, and then when I was 28, they exclaustrated me for leading a cabal to teach the poor gratuitously, for which we took a vow. So the question is, how did all of this come about? Since a young person, I learned from my father how to make liabilities assets. I studied so bad as a child that I was an embarrassment to my mother, but my father taught me because I was a performer. I could recite poetry, could do the boogie woogie. I got thrown out of kindergarten. We're organizing children to resist their destiny at 4. And I went with my Cajun father where he worked, which was at a bar every day. And I became his little monkey with a cup. Okay. And then I lived in a tree house at that time, didn't want to be at home. I had a detective agency spying on everybody, stole all kind of German bullshit that came back from the war because all the guys were drunk. And when I joined the brothers taught me that look at your ordinary, stare at what you think you know to the point where it starts to look strange. Get what I'm saying? Look at yourself. Try it. Think you know yourself? Look at yourself, your face, the building you're in, whatever. Look at it till it looks strange. So I learned that became the modus operandi with what my father taught me. Take my assets, make them liabilities, look at something that's normal. We look at traffic, we look at pedestrians, we look at oil, we look at war. War is the most perfect example of what our history is. So that's what we see.
Thank you so much. Another question from our virtual audience is, you have a lot of stuff on your walls. Are there any highlights there?
I have a lot of what?
You have a lot of stuff on your walls behind you. Are there any highlights there?
Say that again. What do I have?
A lot of stuff on your walls.
Oh, my walls, my walls, my wall. Well, this might be a comfort for some of you. I have mental illnesses. I'm a borderline schizophrenic. I have obsessive compulsive states. I have a mania, like a maniac, but I have a special one called scriptomania. It's rare. I have to see everything. My wife has taken pictures over the years. I have hundreds of boards that I do for each film. All of this is for the last film, Once Within a Time. I do this constantly. It's on my floor. It's on the wall. My room is my genius loci. I have north, south, east, west. I live in this room because my legs don't work anymore. If I had legs, I had a stroke, I would run away. But now it's my room, is my world. So that's how I tried. It's my life, it's my problems. They wanted to, when you make a film, they test you and all of that. And they had a pill for me and Once Within a Time to take care of my mania. And I said, that is the last thing I want to do. If I lose my problems, I won't be able to have my assets. So that's how I proceed. So those of you that are mentally ill, bless God. And boogie woogie. Art is the biggest cure.
Thank you so much. Maybe now it's time for the questions from our physical audience. Ladies and gentlemen, who would like to ask the question? Okay, I'm passing the mic.
Hello, I have a question about Philip Glass. It's in your ear.
Philip Glass, yes.
Philip Glass, what do you think? What makes him a great composer, also a film composer?
First of all, we get on. Philip Glass don't like movies. His famous movie, his best movie is The Jerk. Okay? He doesn't see Krakowski movies or anybody else's for that matter. But he got intrigued by the movies that I'm involved with. So while he and I, Philip Glass, of course, is famous on 7 planets, while Philip Glass and I could both work with whoever we wanted, 9 Inch Nails, whoever, we both decided we wanted to keep working with each other because he always comes up with something different, yet always the same. Philip says, Godfrey, as one of my colleagues told me, Godfrey, just tell me how long you want it. My music will work for anything. His music is like a dancing partner. It has its own moves, but it's in rhythm. There's the harmony, there's the rhythm, there's the harmony, there's the unity and discord and the rhythm. All of that Philip and I have been doing for years now. So I can read his mind. He can read mine. We don't want to work with anybody else. He's 87, I'm 85, and we're both happy to keep working for the rest of our long, another 100-year life.
Thank you so much. Another question from our virtual audience. Before your film career took off, you worked in a charity in northern Mexico, aiming to impact the reality around you. Do you see directing as a similar form of work that allows you to influence the world?
Yes, in fact, the first film I wanted to make was not Koyaanisqatsi. As I said, I got asked to leave my brotherhood for working with the poor. In this case, I worked with street gangs, 7 big gangs in northern New Mexico. As you would say, not nice fellows. But I found out if you tell a person they're a shit, they'll become a shit. If you tell them they're great, 9 out of 8, except for psychos, will become great. So I had this occasion to work with these people who express their emotions. A lot of people who go to school and learn what to do, and you can only see their emotions in their phony face. These were raw, clear emotions. So I was affected deeply by Luis Buñuel's Los Olvidados, The Young and the Damned. And that's the film I wanted to make in the barrios of the gangs I was working with. It had the same physical look, mud houses, heaviness, people treating them terribly. And we created our own project. We didn't want help from anybody. We wanted to help ourselves. And we did so. If there was a dispute, I had, instead of a basketball court, a professional boxing ring. And you'll see how tough you are when you get in that ring. And that included me. Now, they didn't know, well, I weighed 260 pounds then at 6 foot, almost 7. And I was a boxer as a kid and a switchblade operator. Couldn't use switchblades in the room, but I let the kids hit me, then I knocked the kid out. That's how we settled disputes.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone of you would you like to ask a question?
Thank you. I'm interested in the process. You've described the balance of oral and visual and your collaboration with Philip Glass's dancing partners. I'm curious which one leads. Like, do you lead with visuals or do you lead with audio, or is it a mix of the two?
No, it's a mix of the two. Normally, after the film is done, the composer is cues to write, or if it's an orchestral piece, then he'll write an orchestra. Here, one medium motivates the other. As I said earlier, there's as much effort put into the score as to the visual. So they work in tandem. In other words, every day we all meet, from the cook to Philip, myself, my associates, and we all look at the footage every day, as we have a happy hour every day, and we all have access to the mainframe, including Philip. Philip has an ego about the size of the Empire State Building, me the Pan Am Tower. However, big egos are good. They give power, but vanity of ego, being only told what you want to hear, will kill the project. So big ego, great. Vanity of ego will kill the project. So Philip wants to know what I actually feel. I've had to reject any number of his pieces of music, not because they weren't good, but they didn't fit the feeling of the piece. So, for example, in Visitors, he wrote a beautiful score, but it was orchestral. And I said, Philip, it's so beautiful. Why don't you use it for something else? I said, Visitors is the reciprocal gaze. It's for the attention. You not only see what's on the screen is looking at you. It's a moving still. There's 74 images in 87 minutes. It's like trying to stop smoking cigarettes. So Philip said, oh, okay, I'll write for the attention of the audience, not blow them out of the seat. So we have that kind of relationship. And he used it for something else.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to ask more questions to our guest?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Answering to one of the previous questions, you talked about Tarkovsky, and
Yeah.
I would be very curious to find out what you think, which film is your favorite, or maybe which film was the hardest to watch. And I have also a second question, which is not film related. However, in the beginning, you said you were Christian Jew, but it's another and a very long story. Is there any brief story, in a short story, how you could explain, bring it a bit closer to us?
What? Say that again. What is the first part of the question, quickly?
In the beginning, you said that you are a Catholic Jew, but this was another and a very long story. I would be curious to find out
Okay,
a brief.
Well, about 6 months ago, a woman appeared at my door. She was very beautiful, looked a bit Mongolian. And she says, I've come to tell you you're a Jew. Now, I expect times they're Rabbi Reggios and in Trieste. And I found out in Italy when I lived there were no people named Reggio except Jews. So they were of Reggio. When I told my family, who don't want to hear that, at a family reunion, I have a very big family in Louisiana, after I dinged my wine glass and stood up and told them we are Jews, my brother said afterwards, would you pass the rolls, please? And everyone went back to being that way. So while what is it called, Marty, the chart I got from you take genetic choice.
Oh, your ancestry.
Ancestry shows me as having more English than the English, but there's a story to that. Have you heard of Lucretia Borgia, the daughter of Alexander VI, the infamous Pope? Okay, he wasn't so infamous. Most of the popes had children too. Anyway, his daughter, Lucretia Borgia, who, like Mary Magdalene, was the most maligned person in history, at her time became the most painted person in history other than the Madonna. And a member of my family, the Dukes of Ferrara, remember Italy was broken up into nation states, got her, probably sixth person down the line, and gave her the freedom of an army, and she protected the art and the people. So she was fierce. There's a picture of her with a big dagger and a naked breast. You can find it under Lucretia Borgia. And that family is the House of Est. Most of the ruling families are Jews, and they populated they gave marriage to all of the ruling families all over Europe. I could go down the list, and my family's right in the middle of that. So that's how I know that I'm a Jew. And as I told you, my mother and Mary Magdalene, my grandmother, and Mrs., Jewish lady coming at 3 in the afternoon. So yes, I'm a Jew. A Catholic Jew. An agnostic Catholic Jew.
There you.
A heterodox. There are many ways to, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual.
Perfect. Godfrey, thank you so much for this inspiring, thought-provoking meeting. Once again, big congratulations for this award. And we hope to see you face-to-face in Krakow, maybe in the next edition of the festival.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank everybody. I had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye-bye.